Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a time of valuable information. We're going to be discussing transforming the health insurance industry by inclusive solutions and broader access. We've got an amazing panel with us today, but first I'd like to introduce our president of the California Association of Health Insurance Professionals, Rosa Marujo.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. So today's purpose of the training is to highlight a really important topic in health services right now. There is a change in industry in how we view DEI and B. And as we move towards transitioning that branding, we want to make sure that it becomes still one of the most important things that we consider, because when we are in healthcare, we don't think about whatever cultures we are in. We think about doing humanity first in everything that we think about, right? We are always about how can we do better to service our clients in our industry. And that is the goal of bringing you in line awareness of how we are moving forward in that direction to support our clients and the community with these changes. So I am here to talk to you about what NABIP does and the association as a whole. The National Association of Benefits and Insurance Professionals is an association that works with healthcare industry leaders in supporting advocacy for human health insurance rights and advocating for the brokers. The broker community is regularly under attack, and it impacts our consumers. And right now, more than ever, we are needing everyone's support in advocating for those rights. So if you are a California interested member or non-member, we would appreciate you visiting our website, khip.com. Attend our legislation event, which is called CAP Summit. It starts May 12th to the 14th. And if anyone knows where Sacramento is, that is up in Northern California, we are going to be advocating for all of our rights. And it is really important right now more than ever, because there are two major bills that are impacting the industry in California. And we really need advocates there to support us and lead the way. We will help you go through that process, but you can see the links in the chat. Thank you, Sharon. We just look forward to seeing you all there. And if you're not a member, we really want your support, because even more now, we need numbers. Numbers is what's going to make an impact when you're sitting in front of legislators. And so if you haven't learned about our benefits, we can introduce you to our key chairs on the member local chapters to support you with understanding how membership can support you and how you can make an impact in the industry. So thank you so much for your time. I'm going to let the team here take it away. We got some great speakers here. Looking forward to hearing what you guys have to offer us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa Maria. Certainly appreciate you and the message. So today I'm super excited to introduce our illustrious panel. But before we do, for the folks that are online and they're insurance licensed professionals and looking for the CE credit. So we'll be having two polls throughout our time together today that we will need your participation in. And then also you see in the chat, you'll need to click on that link to fill out to get credit for the CE for your time with us today. All right, so let's talk about our illustrious panel. I'm super excited to introduce Jennifer Hairston. She's a certified expert in DEI. We have Elsa Morales Roth, and she is the director of Emilio Neris Foundation. And then we have Renee Balcom, who is the owner of Renee & Company and Scroll.care, which she focuses on healthcare advocacy. So I'd like to give our panelists 1 or 2 minutes to introduce themselves and share how their connection with DEIB and the health insurance perspective today. Jennifer, you want to go ahead and start?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me today. Hello, everyone. Greetings from wherever you are. My name is Jennifer Hairston. I'm born and raised in San Diego, California, have still been here. DEI is something that I did not choose, it chose me. And so I am very grateful for the work that I have done thus far in this industry. I have worked for Illumina, Curology, and most recently Biocom California as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. as Carrie stated, I do have my certificate from Cornell University in DEI, and it is an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here with everyone today.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll go then to Miss Elsa.
Hi, everyone. My name is, first of all, thank you so much for joining this conversation. It's an honor to be with this panelists and be able to have this beautiful discussion with this group. My name is Elsa Morales Roth. I'm the Executive Director of Emilio Nares Foundation. We're based here in San Diego, California, but we actually serve all of Southern California. We help families navigate their child's journey with cancer and life-threatening diseases by providing either free cost transportation, access to shelter, food, legal aid, whatever a family might need during and after treatment. We've served around 11,000 families throughout the 23 years of Emilio Nares Foundation. I was actually born and raised in Tijuana, Mexico. I'm an immigrant and I've been lucky enough to call San Diego my home since 2011. I have about 18 years experience in nonprofit sector, both in Mexico and the US. And part of what pulls me inward to work in the nonprofit sector, it's my own lived experience with my family in the sense of basically managing those barriers or challenges when you migrate to another country. But not only that, how do you access basic needs like healthcare, education, and how do you make sure that everybody has the same opportunity, even though we have to meet them at different levels, right? How do we make sure that we empower the communities that have been under-resourced for years? So that's what truly I'm passionate about in the nonprofit sector. I'm, again, very happy to be here.
Thank you, Elsa. And now Renee, to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see some familiar faces in the room, and not to repeat what everyone else said, but I am also honored to be here and be with this esteemed panel. So thank you so much, Carrie, for the invitation. I am and have been a professional healthcare advocate for almost 20 years. I have a team of advocates under the banner of Renee and Company that we work with individuals to help navigate the healthcare systems and the social benefit systems. Our youngest client is 5 years old and our oldest client is 93. And we work with a diversity of people, pediatrics, geriatrics, advanced illness, chronic illness, behavioral health and cognitive impairment, advanced disease management, just almost the whole scope of healthcare. None of us are licensed healthcare providers, so none of us, which really in some ways gives us a great advantage as advocates, because we have to take a very complex system and learn to simplify that system and figure out how to navigate that system on behalf of our clients. And so oftentimes, if you are educated in those systems, that becomes more difficult to be able to kind of bring it down so people can understand it. A few years ago, I started on the journey of building an app. That app is called Scroll.care, and we released that app in January of this year in the Sacramento area. And the goal of Scroll.care is to help families learn how to write care plans and navigate these systems themselves. Our one-on-one consulting work can be very spendy, and oftentimes families can't afford those services. So I really went on the quest to figure out how we could use technology to develop a system to help people learn how to navigate these systems. So I'm excited about Scroll. My association with the insurance industry, I sit on the board of directors for KHIP Northern California as the DEI chair. And part of the mission of Scroll.care is to use and work with the brokers, insurance brokers, because they're our first line of interface with most of our clients, right? So we want our insurance brokers to look at Scroll as a tool that they can sell and work with their clients and their businesses that they represent as part of a system that helps people navigate these systems. So I'll stop there, but thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, ladies, for that information. As you see, we've got lots of experience, years of experience, knowledge, and passion I see from all of you as well. So again, thank you for joining us today. So let's start with the conversation of what is DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. As we all know, these acronyms have changed as far as the true meaning. And so we want to really dismiss all the myths out there and let's break it down. And so I want to give about maybe 7 minutes or 5 or 7 minutes to have that conversation. But before we start, I did want to read NABIB, which is the national level of our organization, the National Association for Benefits and Insurance Professionals. They created a National Healthcare Bill of Rights several years ago. And I just want to read a portion of it. There's 10 bullet points. So I encourage you, if you are a member, to go out to the NABIB website and you can download it. But part of the excerpt I want to read is the Healthcare Bill of Rights. This serves to protect and uphold the rights of every American to access affordable, high-quality healthcare. It is our fundamental belief that healthcare should be comprehensive, equitable, and compassionate for all individuals. So I want to open up to our panel. Let's start with Elsa, as far as your meaning, your perception of the meaning of DEIB.
So for us at Emilio Unitas Foundation, we serve a lot of families that come from underserved communities or underinvested communities. What tends to happen is when a child gets diagnosed with cancer or life-threatening disease, it's overwhelming for anyone, right? All of us have been in that situation where you ask yourself, what do I do now? Who can I connect with? You don't know where to start, right? And what tends to happen sometimes is we're emotionally charged and everything, and then they come up and they serve us with forms, right? And 30 pages of forms, 20 pages of forms. You have to make very quick decisions to ensure that your loved one can have access to the healthcare. So part of what we are doing, for example, at Emilio Unitas Foundation, is sitting down and asking, how can we help? Let's go through everything. Let's educate a lot of the families. They don't know what services they're eligible for, right? They don't know what chemotherapy might mean, how many times they need to go through it, what it will cost them. So for me, in regards to healthcare specifically, it's connecting families with educating them on the system because it's so complex to navigate. So that's one, making sure that they do have you include them by educating them on their benefits, on how the resources that they can connect to. A couple of them is also making sure that we provide culturally relevant information, right, to them. Healthcare insurance is doesn't look the same way for all of us. We all have very different lived experiences. We have our own cultural backgrounds. We want to make sure that within the system that we know is it's very, let's say, very uniform. Let's just standardize. How can we make sure that all of the families that we serve connect with them and understand it based on their lived experience, right? One example would be, for example, we have a couple of groups where we serve a Haitian group. Sickle cell is a big blood disorder that impacts this community. So a lot of the families that we serve, where they don't know firsthand how long the treatment takes, if it's forever and all of that. So we first sit down and educate them about this disorder, right? How we bring in actually health insurance providers or medical to provide the information and like, this is what you're eligible for based on this disorder, right? We also have focus groups on just asking questions like, do you understand how you can access health insurance? Do you understand the benefits, right? And right there and then, when we create these focus group or these, we call it peer support groups, what we want to make sure is we address the questions that somebody might not be comfortable asking, right? And maybe when you are trying to fill out paperwork with a social worker, because also social workers have so much work to do, right? So for us, creating these peer support groups where people can just ask the questions. First, they get educated on what they could be, what are the resources available to them, but also where you can ask the questions. Again, everybody's lived experience is very different. So part of ensuring inclusiveness and the sense of belonging is that they also have a voice. They also have the opportunity to share their concerns. We all have concerns. So by creating these spaces, it allows us to create belonging. It allows us to ensure that we are equitable in the sense of one family, even though they come from the same community, they might have a completely different experience, right? They might have a completely different educational levels, socioeconomic levels. So at that point, when you create these peer support groups, you start identify that, and then you can provide that one-on-one support. So making sure that you give a voice to the community is very important when you're creating these spaces, and that will create truly diverse equity, inclusion, and belonging. Also, you're going to get a lot of insight on what are some other potential barriers that the communities that you serve are facing. So then you can adjust and pivot and make sure that you address those inequities.
Excellent. Thank you, Elsa, for that, for sharing that information. I want to just put out there, read out there a definition of DEIB. Okay, so diversity is the presence of differences that may include race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, nationality, social economic status, language, disability, age. All those different things fall under the D in diversity, right? Equity is promoting justice, impartiality, and fairness within the procedures and the processes to distribute resources. So fair and equal access to opportunities, right? Inclusion, that's the outcome to ensure that that those that are diverse actually feel and are welcomed and included. The inclusion outcomes are met when the institution or the organization is putting forth their programs or their initiatives. So basically, we want to make sure that all voices are heard and valued, right? That's a high overview of DEIB. Now, I'm going to go to Renee, because we have spoken in the past regarding this topic and how we believe that DEIB is in everything. Can you speak to that today, Renee?
Yes, thank you. So my experience as a healthcare advocate has been that when we're entering a medical situation with any client, it is very, very personal, and that individual immediately will go into kind of this myopic fight or flight, which is a natural, brain function, this fight or flight mode. So the work that we do is so important in kind of opening that person up and giving them confidence and empowering them, as Elsa was talking about, in the system that they're in, right? Educating them and empowering them. My philosophy personally about DEIB is humanity. Rosa mentioned it, humanity first, right? We're dealing with human beings, and every one of us are going to respond uniquely differently as human beings. And so unfortunately, when we're looking at large systems, that's not how these systems usually are. The procedures and policies of these systems are usually prevail in spite of the individuals that they're treating. So it's so important, in my opinion, if we're really going to embrace DEIB, is that we really have to start with the human being first, and we have to really be able to educate them, empower them, encourage them, and oftentimes come right alongside of that family and help them navigate these systems, right? I know most large institutions now, large providers, are providing healthcare advocates, but my experience has been they're also working in procedure in that system. So oftentimes they're following their procedure, but missing the individual that's in the room. And again, as Elsa said, they come in with a stack of forms and all these things, and it's complicated. And at that moment, that family is fighting for their life, oftentimes, either financially or whatever illness or sickness that they're dealing with. They literally, their brain is searching for what's next for me, right? And so again, we have to begin with the person, the individual, and the human being and their presence in these situations and in these rooms. And I love that the definition of equity and inclusion is that it's not should never be based on race or color or sexual orientation or any of those things. It's about that individual. I personally work with mental health disease, and cognitive impairment. And I've got to tell you, these are a group of people that most providers are afraid of, right? So they marginalize these people and they don't want to hear them. They just want to anesthetize them, right? They want to drug them, right? So my battle has been over and over again for almost 20 years now, fighting against the need to drug them and silence them. And let's really find out what the cause and the root cause, and let's start treating them, right? But it's an ongoing battle for sure. So long-winded answer to the question, but humanity first, always.
Yeah.
If we start there, we'll do everything right from that point. If we start looking in the eye of that human being and understanding that we're dealing with a soul and a person and an individual, and we'll do better if we can start in that space.
Thank you. I love that. Start with the human first, right? Humanity first.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, would you like to weigh in for a couple of minutes in your experience and your definition of DEIB, how it shows up in your space?
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Elsa and Renee, for your insights around everything that you do and everything that you've shared thus far. So my kind of insight and definition of DEI is very different, just as an industry leader that has been in the HR space for as long as I've been in the HR space. Now I will not give a number because I'm not trying to age myself by any circumstances today. But part of what DEI has become is because of what society has labeled it as, what they have decided to deem this is what DEI is. We all know what DEI is not. And Carrie, when you and I were talking, it's very much so going back to the level set of what DEI actually means. And what DEI actually means and provides is, when you're a caregiver, being able to be there for whoever you're caregiving for. If that's your parents, if that is your child, if whoever that is. DEI is being able to have large print on whatever document that it is that you're trying to read. DEI is allowing mothers to have a private space to go into to provide milk and breastfeed in peace without having to do it in a public setting. DEI is having curb cuts so people can access the other side of the street or do the things that they need to do without feeling like they're restricted or they have to have someone by their side. It is still allowing them to have their independence. DEI is not this definition of race, gender, who you identify as, what your religion is. It is not all of those things. That is what society has deemed it as. And so when I think about in the HR space that I am, when we think about doing benefits and we think about doing all the things that we do, very much so HR has now moved into this phase of people and culture, because it is very much what Renee just shared, which is putting the human back into the work that it is that we do. Because yes, we all have work to do. Yes, we all have families that we provide for, and we know where that comes. That comes from our 9-to-5s. And for most of us, that's more than 9 to 5, right? And so ensuring that there is ample enough opportunities for us to be able to provide for our families and get the healthcare that we deserve, because we are also humans that are trying to get back into this world. And so when I think about how important it is to make sure that our benefits are more widespan than what they consider today, and making sure that people are not deeming it to what they think it is, because they never know, and we never know what situation can happen. You know, I could be perfectly fine tomorrow and then be diagnosed with something that's going to be life-changing for my entire family. Is my family going to be able to do that? And for someone like me that has spent 10 years in the financial industry before going into life science and biotech, understanding the financial literacy is also important, is making sure that you understand that your family needs to be set up for success. So therefore, if unfortunately you do not get to stay on this earth, making sure that your family can continue on. So there's so many other things when it comes to DEI, and that's also a part of DEI, is financial literacy, is understanding, do you have a will? Am I going to be able to provide for my family if I go out on leave? It's all of these other things. And so making sure that you have an advocate and making sure that you're asking questions and not being fearful of asking questions. And if something doesn't feel right, it normally isn't right. And making sure that you're okay with getting a second, third, fourth opinion, and knowing that you don't have to be boxed in, because unfortunately, you're categorized by a barrier that you cannot control, right? I cannot control that I was born a Black woman. I cannot control whatever social economic society I am tied to. But what I can control for is when I'm in that room and somebody is boxing me in, I'm not going to be boxed in, because I want to make sure that I'm going to get the best opportunity, not only for myself, but for my family.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Jennifer. So what I'm hearing amongst the panelists, humanity first, humanity first. We're all individuals. Doesn't matter what box or silo we may identify with or be put in on our own self or by someone else, but also to have those questions. And that's what we're doing today. We're just having a conversation. Without having a conversation, we can't bring awareness and we can't bring about change. So thank you so much for that. I think we're going to pause for a moment and do a poll question. If Sharon will assist me with that. We're going to pop a poll question, I believe, into, it'll pop up here with Zoom. All right, if you guys want to go ahead and take the poll question so you can get the CE credits for us licensed insurance professionals. All right, thank you for answering. We'll keep, all right, it's going quick. You guys are quick.
You're excited. I love it.
Yes, yes. All right, we've got, I think, just a handful of other people to answer. Let's see, 2 more before we end the poll. All right, we're going once, going twice. 1 more. You want to get your CE credit?
Yeah, you guys gotta complete the poll or else you won't get approved for CE, just an FYI.
Yes. All right, so the question is, what is one key role of DEIB at the healthcare insurance industry? We've got reducing healthcare disparities, increasing insurance premiums, limiting access to healthcare, eliminating workplace diversity. All right, so the answer is reducing healthcare disparities. We got 88%. All right. Oh, let's see here. Did it come up? Oh, wait, hang on here. Yes, I can do one thing at a time, folks. Stop sharing. There we go.
You're doing great.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Technology is an opportunity for growth.
We
Let's see,
saw
we'll
the survey. Very good. You can, yep,
Okay,
we're
there we
good.
go. All right, thank you. And by the way, I think I failed to introduce myself. I am Carrie Sanford. I am the DEIB chair for CAHIP, for the California Association of Health Insurance Professionals. Oh, I think we have a question. Dawn, can you unmute yourself?
I was just clapping.
Oh, you were clapping. Okay, well, thank you. I'll take it. Yes, we'll take it. All of us. Takes a village. All right, so we're going to continue on. So the next question I want to ask our panelists, let's see here. So how have you seen systemic inequities? We did kind of talk about this a little bit. Elsa touched on this along with all 3 of you did. So I want to share some systemic inequities that have shown up in health insurance access. And then what are some additional ways that you and your organization are doing to dismantle them?
So I can kind of answer in the industry part of it, and then Renee and Elsa, if you want to answer it on the insurance part, that'd be great. So
Wonderful.
part of the things that so for example, when I worked at Illumina, so Illumina is a huge biotech company based in San Diego that unlocks the human genome. Now, I will tell you, when I first started working there, I was like, I don't know what that means. That sounds amazing. I'm just working here. It's the place to work, right? And so part of, as I started to work there and started to get invested, so right when the pandemic was happening, part of Illumina's kind of question was, we're not into the communities that we really need to best serve. So what can we do around that? So part of, when I say part of my journey, was that I did not choose DEI, DEI chose me, was I was asked to start our first Black ERG. And in the midst of that, I was also tasked with making sure that our underrepresented communities understood what unlocking this genome meant. And so part of our very first project was getting more representation and getting more of Illumina's customers potentially to understand what it was to have this kind of process done. And so something that would not have been offered or a conversation before, which was very limited in these type of situations for families to get your DNA tested to see kind of what your life-threatening diseases are, to see what prevention you can take, was not an option before. And so part of what we were tasked with doing was to get into having conversations with like organizations like ELSA's, with getting partnerships with hospitals to be able to have these kind of conversations to make sure that our customers potentially and customers that we had existing, we're getting those opportunities to have this DNA sequencing done beforehand to see what kind of measures could have been taken. So part of eliminating these things was calling yourself on the carpet and recognizing like, listen, I do things great, but I might not do things well. I know that I have well intention, but I'm not executing it well. And so part of those conversations, which I was very grateful to be a part of and really start to kind of take my DEI runway on, was being able to have these conversations and getting into this community to say, listen, I want to make sure that representation matters. We're in this kind of community. Someone that looks like you, someone that represents you, someone that is understanding you is going to be here for you, to advocate for you and promote you through this process. And so that is part of the way that I have within the industry tried to eliminate some of this. And then within my network. So Elsa will call me. Elsa and I actually are really good friends outside of this. So Elsa will call me. We'll talk through these things to make sure that we have an understanding of how we can represent the communities that we both live in. And so that's kind of how the inequities we tried to eliminate. We obviously, it takes a village to do all of this work. And so, but I think that is a small portion of when you think about kind of DNA sequencing and Illumina being such a huge company that they are, that's part of what the changes can be.
Thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. I often neglect that understanding those types of things when it comes to health, diseases and disorders, right? All of our DNA is different and we all will respond to treatments differently. So it is so important to have that representation. So thank you for the work that you have been doing. How about Renee? Would you like to weigh in on that?
I would. I love that. And Jennifer, I have to tell you, you talked earlier about financial literacy. Gosh, it's so important. And it really, depending on where you grew up or what your family's experience has been, we're all on a different plane with financial literacy, right? And so it's definitely an area that I think we overlook in to elevate the people around us and educate and again empower people. I mean, I'm really about at this stage in wanting to teach people so they're empowered to be able to make the right decisions for the course of their life.
Absolutely.
With that said, I have to say, when it comes to the insurance industry in general, access is a barrier, right? Whether it's whether someone can't find or understand or afford what's available to them from insurance from our carriers, that's really a big barrier for most of my clients and their families. They don't always understand, and they're oftentimes insured, but they don't understand what that coverage means, what the triggers are to pull for that coverage, right? And then when they're in a medical crisis or they're sitting with their doctors, clearly the doctors don't know. So there's that barrier that starts happening. And I think one of the things we have to do, if we're going to really bring equity into the lives of the consumer and the human being, right, is we have to take the next step in educating them, not just writing policy, but educating them about what that policy means. And maybe that comes through flyers or digital education. Maybe they have classes, but my experience as a healthcare advocate is most of the people I interface with will say, I have no idea what my insurance covers. I have no idea. And so they're victims of whatever the clerk in the exam room, in the doctor's office tells them. And oftentimes that clerk doesn't know either. So, I had a situation recently where I had a man call and his son had had a big psych break. He called the county. His son's covered by Medi-Cal. He called the county for services, and the county said there were no services for him in Medi-Cal. Well, that's not even true. That was not true. So we were able to come alongside of this, and the man was desperate to get his son help. So we were able to come alongside of this family and show them what their benefits, what his Medi-Cal benefits would allow for him, assist him in navigating through his system, through the Sutter Coast system here in Sacramento, and getting him some of the services he needed. But it was so sad to me to hear this man so desperate to help his son, and how he had hit these barriers with people that just didn't know. They were ill-informed and they didn't understand. So I think one of the things that we can look at, again, I kind of keep leaning towards technology, because not that everybody's technically astute. I certainly am not, which is such a funny thing about having an app, right? But that's why, I mean, I was in technology for 20 years, so I understand the power of technology. But that's why I wanted a really simple mechanism for people to be able to speak into an app and have the app start delivering them, the right resources in their marketplace and the right people that can help guide them. Because we have some great experts around us, but oftentimes people don't know how to access those experts, right? And again, I feel like the first line of defense is our insurance brokers, right? They're the ones that touch these consumers first. And oftentimes when I tell a client, let's talk to your agent. Oh, like I don't really talk to my agent. Like they wrote my policy, and it's like, well, they're the guy that's the expert on your policy. Like that's why we want to go back to them, right? So again, educating the consumer that, look, this is a resource for you. And it's not just someone that you talk to once a year or once every couple of years. These are human beings that want to help you, and that they're a resource for you. So I see that empowerment all about education, as Elsa had said. Like we have to elevate people's knowledge of what's available to them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Renee. And it goes to the attendees. Many of the attendees on the call or on the webinar today, they're group health insurance brokers or agents in the group space, individual space. And this just solidifies again, points out the important work that we are doing in our communities that we serve. And it's so important to share this message for the employer groups, right? Oftentimes I hear in my own personal former life in group settings, working with the business owner, giving time to explain the benefits has always been historically a challenge. So again, it just points out the importance of the education piece to show people what they have, how to use it in their time of need.
Yeah.
All right, and Elsa, would you like to weigh in on that?
Yes. So thank you, Renee and Jennifer, because you hit the head on the nail, right? It's how we need to understand what also equity is not. Going back a little bit to Carrie to the definition. A lot of people say equity is like we give the same opportunities to say it to everyone the same way. That's not equity. Equity is understanding, again, our lived experiences, our backgrounds, everything that takes, that changes how we perceive or how we understand the healthcare system, right? Jennifer, Carrie, and Renee, all of us might have a very different perspective, right? Or understanding of the system. So equity is not this blanket approach, one size fits all. Equity is understanding that we do have differences because of other non-medical factors, right? Social drivers of health, which are those non-medical factors that influence our health outcomes, can completely change somebody's experience with the healthcare system or with their health insurance, right? We understand that, for example, I'm Latina. I came from a lower income community. Now I was very privileged to go into college and be a first generation. That changes, that opens up opportunities because I was very privileged to get the opportunity to understand more of my surroundings. Not everybody has that experience, right? I have a lot of people in my neighborhood that were not even able to graduate high school because they had to provide for their family. That was their first, there was their first basic need. So those opportunities, we do have to consider them when we're seeing the systemic inequities, right, in the healthcare insurance and accessing healthcare insurance. Some families, a lot of the families that we serve at Amelia Unitas Foundation, they have language barriers or limited health literacy, or they have inconsistent employment, or, there's even that jumping from one retail job to another because, the system, right? Right now, the economy is going to take an impact. So that means that a lot of people are going to have to shift into a different job. So that means I'm gonna get another health insurance provider. What does that look like? Because I was used to receiving this type of service from this broker, and now I'm gonna move into a different company. It might be medical to private or the other way around. And just sitting down, to your point, Renee, of making sure that the brokers and that first person is able to explain, here are your new benefits, this is what you're eligible for. If you know that they're already coming in with a treatment from another healthcare provider or a healthcare insurance provider, understanding, hey, when you sign up with us, this is what you're eligible for, and this is how you can continue your treatment, right? Having those, one, again, going back to the human element, we have to understand that as health insurance brokers, we have a lot of lives in our hands, right? I've seen children, and to be honest, even in my family, see my mom is 75. She has missed a life-saving treatment because somebody didn't take that extra minute to explain to her how could she access transportation, how could she, get a new pair of glasses, and that leads to several different things. So to dismantle this inequities is going back to that humanity, but also simple, making sure that we educate and empower our communities. Look, if we educate those that we serve, they might not come back with 10 other questions because they're educated now. So that actually reduces even the ROI, well, actually improves the ROI, sorry, because then you don't have 10 phone calls going back and forth, right? One of the things that I constantly see, it's also, we need to understand the digital divide. Not everybody right now is had access to digital literacy, right? So how can we empower them? That doesn't mean that they are not capable. I wanna highlight that. That doesn't mean that people don't want to go into the digital age and go into apps and that. Just didn't have access right now. So if we educate them in that, they're gonna be able to feel empowered and use those digital platforms to make it a streamlined process. So even that, those things, I think it's where it's very important to making sure, one, that we empower the families, but also that we create that trust, that your healthcare insurance provider creates that trust with them, that I know that I'm going to get all the information I need to continue my health insurance.
Absolutely. Thank you, Elsa. That is so true. I remember, I don't know where I read this stat, but people typically take more time to plan their vacations than inquiring about their health insurance. But now it's time for the second poll question. So Sharon's going to help us with that question. It will pop up here. We'll need everyone's participation in order to get the CE credit. All right. That was quick. Thank you, everyone. We're almost at 100% participation. All right, we're almost there. Got
I
one
love
more.
what Dawn is saying. Sorry, that healthcare is its own language itself. Thank you for sharing that resource.
Absolutely. All right. Meanwhile, someone, or thank you, Sharon, had put in the chat area for those brokers and agents online. We can share the broker survey to help share the message, the important role of a broker and an agent, how we're helping the clients that we serve, and to change the narrative and the perception of our industry. So feel free to share the information with your clients, ask them to complete the survey to share their experience and how the value that we bring as brokers and agents. All right, we're going to close the poll here. There's there we go. Excellent. Sharing. All right. Well, gosh, we are coming up on the end of our hour. However, I do want to have shorten it just like 1 minute for each of us, for each of the panels, to ask how are you and or your organization, how are you building trust with communities that historically have been underserved and have that mistrust factor. So what are you or your organizations doing, and what can we as healthcare professionals interfacing with folks help address that?
I'll go. So first of all, I want to say about the complexity of the insurance industry that Dawn mentioned in her comment. Rosa Maria and I have merged together with Scroll. She's my co-CEO with Scroll.care. And she invited me, in fact, she required me to go to Medicarians. And I have to say, I've been in the healthcare business for almost 20 years, and my eyes were opened at Medicarians, right? I really didn't understand the breadth of the services that the insurance brokers and agents actually perform. So, you know, and I've been in this business for a long time. So if I don't understand it, I'm telling you all that the general population doesn't understand it. And that's one of the places we begin. But to answer your question, I would say the we start as healthcare advocates in any underserved community or marginalized community is to start with humility. If you go into these communities thinking you have all the answers about something you don't know anything about, you lose trust immediately, right? You have to go in with humility and learning and compassion and wanting to have some experiences. And when you do, you start building trust right away, right? People ask me all the time because, again, I focus on people with pretty severe mental health concerns. But I build trust with them very quickly because I recognize very quickly that I need to humble myself to their plight and try to understand that I may only be moments away from having that same experience in my life, right? So to, you know, to look at these individuals and look at these communities and understand that we're only a moment away from that same exact experience. We just have to start by offering humility, being willing to learn, and then they trust us to come alongside of them and show them something different. But if we go in and we think we have all the answers, we'll never make progress there.
Thank you, Renee. And Jennifer, 1 minute.
So I would say bullet points for the brokers. It is start with listening. Consistency matters. Representation matters. Transparency and long-term relationships. And also knowing that if you are not capable of doing it, it is okay to bow gracefully and have someone else step in. The kind of evolution and ongoing for myself that I do is I continue to go back into these communities. These are not necessarily communities that I have grown up in, but I go into these communities as we are really trying to push kids into STEM, to make sure that representation at the table matters, because at one point in time, they're going to go into this workforce. And so having kids see someone like me with my own lived experiences say, okay, I have the opportunity to be a part of the change. And what does that change look like? The change starts with me. So making sure that I'm hands-on, making sure that I'm continuously building my relationships and not only just speaking it, but also living it myself. And so that is kind of what the full circle, kind of full loop for me looks like and will continue to look like.
Thank you. I love those bullet points. And Elsa.
1 minute. I'll do it very quickly.
No, you're good.
Very, come at it with curiosity. I know diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is always evolving. It's not just a thing that is a trend. It's going to be forever. This has been going on for decades. So this is nothing new. We just now have terminology for it, right? And understanding of it. So come, if you have questions around this, how do I implement? How do I connect with the community? That's okay. We're all learning together, but come at it with humility and curiosity. Ask the questions, right? Sometimes if you partner up with community-based organizations, we're doing the work and we can partner up and learn about each other, right? Learn how the insurance is working and how can we together educate the community, right? That builds trust because together we're building something that is going to empower the community. And together we can understand and learn from the communities. Community-based organizations sometimes we're not experts either because everything changes. But together, if we go in and ask with humility and curiosity to the community, how can we support you? How can we serve you? That's going to build trust, and that's going to bring in that we're going to be able to build bridges basically, right? And make sure that we understand each other and we can evolve together so we can bring in again DEIB truly to all communities.
I love that, ladies. I love that the idea of just having a conversation, asking questions like we are today, right? So I want to pause for a moment and see if there are any questions in the comments that we need to answer, or anyone that's in the attendees has any questions they want to. Oh, Rosa Maria, yes.
Hi. I just want to thank you all. That was really informative. And one question I have is, with technology and all of the new changes with AI and such forth, do you guys have any any just like insight into how you think this will evolve now as we are starting to become more in that world? Any ideas on it? I mean, obviously it's a positive thing, but could also be a negative thing. But just any high level thoughts on what you guys think, how that will change the way we look at servicing the communities that we service now with this new technology that's come into play.
So I think it goes back to what Elsa said. Not everyone is at that data point. I know trying to get my mom to use technology is like almost like pulling out my own teeth. So there's only a certain level that I'm going to be able to do it. But I think the way that I have seen AI, especially for my generation particularly, is trying to figure out how to set ourselves up with questions and success when we walk into these doctor's office. I have all these symptoms. What questions do I need to ask when I go in there versus someone telling me what I'm going through? Because we have to remember that doctors are practicing just because they have their doctor's degree, which all of us could have. They're still practicing medicine, so they don't really know. So what we're doing is, for my generation particularly, we're using AI to be a preventative measure as well, to say, listen, I'm starting to feel this way. What are some things that I can do to lower that? And then also setting us up for success to say, listen, I'm going into this doctor's office. I've had all these concerns. I've had all these issues. What questions do I need to ask? What medications do I need to avoid? So there's more of a conversation and a dialogue when we go into these offices with AI versus it being someone that is telling me you're doing this wrong. It's hereditary. It's this, it's that, but it's more of a conversation. So therefore, I'm set up for success, and then I know what my benefits are actually going to cover for me.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Any other questions from the audience? All right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much to our panelists, Jennifer, Elsa, and Renee. I appreciate you taking the time to bring this valuable insight from your experiences and your knowledge. And I want to thank everyone who joined us today for this important, impactful conversation. And this is just the beginning. So want to bid everyone a great day and enjoy the rest of your week.
Right. Nice
Thank you,
meeting
everyone.
You.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take good care.
Great job.
Thank you.